someone there will be able to answer your question.
Use Mike Ross's name, right?
Yeah.
Don't put on Mike's bill.
Put it on Mike's bill.
Percentage. There's no severance tax to the federal government, no property taxes, it's only income tax. That's all you pay. So
15% of what you get is tax-free. All the roll.
Yeah, and so it's you're getting
Other questions for Don? We'll move right along. Let's give him a good hand. We have with us tonight one of the most successful men in the oil and gas business in the state of West Virginia. Back there in the corner, Ike Morris, Yuma County. Give him a good hand. He's been a lot of love. Almost a Pocahontas County resident. We're going to get into this fracturing now, and I think that we move into the fracture, we probably ought to talk a little bit about how we start off drilling the well, what we do to protect fresh water, what we do to protect the coal. We have very little coal here in Pocahontas County, but there is some in some of the higher elevations. But once we get the permit, as Dennis pointed out, from the state of West Virginia, it's been surveyed, reclamation plan's been laid out. Now comes the bulldozers, come in, grade off the site. Like to get in the field with him with nothing but brush. It's a lot easier, a lot cheaper. Put your road in, bring the drilling rig in. You bring all the equipment that goes with it. Use a lot of air compressors. They do a lot of drilling with air. Get into water from time to time. Then you have to add some of the surfactant or soaps, about like Joy liquid, and it lightens the water. David will bring it out, brings the cuttings out, and puts it off into the pit that's dug. But Chad, you come on up here now. We'll get involved here a little bit. We start off generally we're drilling the shallow wells over in that Buchanan area with 5,500 foot deep, and things go right over there. We drill a well a week. I mean, we drill that much, put the pipe in them and leave it. Move on to another one. We start off generally in a 13-inch hole. We start drilling, we're down 13-inch hole. We may go 200 feet down. Then we get 200 feet down there, we install 11 3/4-inch pipe down in that hole, clear to bottom. It's screwed together in 40-foot joints, done with hydraulic wrenches. You lower that down in there, and then we call in a company like B.J. Hughes or Halliburton or Schlumberger or Universal or Superior. We have a lot of service companies in the Buchanan area. They come in with a truckload of cement, and you have water on location. So they mix the cement and water together. And the state requires this in most places to protect any fresh water. Maybe 200 feet, maybe 300 feet, may only be 150 feet. You put the pipe in there, they mix up the cement and water, they force it down the inside of the pipe, back up the outside of the pipe, clear back to surface. Then he installs a rubber plug there, and he puts water on top of that. He forces the plug down inside the pipe. They have these big trucks with big pumps on them. And that brings your cement up on the outside. Then you shut down, let that cement set up before they ever come back in and start drilling. So you go back in, they start drilling again with a smaller bit. You reduce the hole. Every time you run the pipe, you got to go into the smaller bit. You drill a little deeper. So then we have what we call an intermediate string. We'll drill a, 10 1/4 hole, dude. Yeah. We drill a 10 1/4 hole inside that 11 3/4-inch pipe. We'll drill that down to maybe 1,000 feet. That protects any coal, protects any additional water, and generally when you get in most areas around the state, you get below 300 to 400 feet, you're into salt water. You don't have much fresh water anywhere around any deeper than that. Over in our area and possibly over in this area. But then we put the 5/8-inch pipe in. Same way. Screw it together, 40-foot joints. Put it clear down at the bottom. They come in with a lot of cement. They know how much cement and how much a sack will fill up in the annulus around the pipe. So they force that cement back down, back up the outside again. And we shut down again and let that set up. Then they come in with a 7/7/8-inch bit. Then we drill down to where we're going to go. We know the sands over in that area with it. And in the Buchanan area, you have 5 or 6 different pay zones down to 5,500 feet. Over here, you don't have a lot of those shallow sand. They've been washed off over the years. You don't have the shallow production over here. That's why there's been more drilling over in the central part of the state. We have the big engine sandstone. It's all over the state of West Virginia. Been one of the greatest producers ever. Most of our drilling over there in the big engine was 2,000 foot deep. Fred Burns can tell you, Ike Morris can tell you, that's the rock that's right underneath this limestone over here that you mine over here, the Greenbrier line. It's right underneath it. Over there it produced a lot of gas. Up here, I don't know if it's ever produced, probably never will produce. But that's one example. Anyway, after we drill the hole down to 5,500 feet where we want to go, the hole was open then we call in what we call a logging truck. And you see, Slumberjay was a leader in logging, pioneer logging. And what that is a downhole X-ray. It puts out a chart, looks like this. And from this we interpret where the gas may be. Here's a well drilled in Braxton County down near the Burnsville Dam. Drill this well something over, drill this well 7,400 foot deep. We went clear through the Marcellus. Well, it's radiation logging. It has a gamma ray that identifies your sandstones, your limestones over here. And here's a marker on the Greenbrier line right here, the big line we call it. This right here is a big engine sandstone right underneath it. We go on down. Each of those lines means something, someone in the business. Here's a line right here that's just a simple thermometer. As you lower the thermometer in the earth, about every 87 feet you go down, you get about 1 degree warmer. So you get down there pretty deep, you're pretty warm. But as you're going down the hole, and they're drilling, and they drill sometimes as much as 60 to 100 foot an hour. I mean, they're really moving. But look here, what happened to that? Normally your gradient's going over here, you're getting warmer. You're moving to that side of the paper all the time, and you have to, this is all recorded back through a line, through a cable, back into a truck. We're sitting on there looking, just like looking at a television screen. This is being printed out. But as you get down there, you're getting warmer. You get down here, and what this is the Gordon sand right here. These little marks here tell us that we've been in the business a long time. We recognize that as a Gordon sand over in that area. Instead of getting warmer here, we have gas coming out of that rock right there. So when you have gas coming out, you have expansion, you have cooling. And instead of that gradient going over here, continue to get warmer, you see the curve in that line? That pinpoints where the gas is in this hole. And then we go on down. We keep going. There's another formation that has a little bit of gas in it. And that's at 2,300 feet. Each of these little lines on here are 2 foot each, and there's a 10 foot line. Each of these are 50 foot for the heavier lines. Here's a little gas kick at 3,000 feet. So you keep adding these all up and you wonder, how are you going to bring them all out of there? But there's a way, isn't there, Dennis? Like going down the hallway in a motel room, you just open a whole bunch of doors. And then you make them all produce on the way back out. There's the Benson sand at 4,200 feet in that particular hole down there. And you see the curve in the gas line again, there's gas coming out of that. We go on down below the Benson. We've already been through the big engine, we've been through the Gordon, we've been through Ball Towns in there, and then we do the Benson. Here's a couple little shale streaks down at 5,350 foot. We got a little more gas. So we're heading for the Marcellus. Only this was drilled prior to, this was drilled in 2000, year 2000. Wasn't any activity in Marcellus in this area. So we didn't do anything with it. We get down here to approximately 6,600 feet, and here's the Marcellus shale. That's what it looks like on the log. That's pretty thin in Braxton County. If you take one of these, they got one from Randolph County. This well's right out along the corridor edge as you go across the big pump going into Buchanan.
How thin is it in Braxton?
This is about 60 feet. But you come out of the, right here's a dividing line between a shallow well and a deep well, right here. You're going out of the Marcellus into what they call the Onondaga limestone. You get on down here and you're into the Riskin, right here underneath. Hold that up there if you would, Chad. Now there's a Randolph County well, and you look at, see the difference? See what happens? You're twice as thick in Randolph County in the Marcellus as you are in Braxton County.
How many feet does that represent?
How many, Ron?
Well, it's a number of feet, right?
The feet, yeah.
One's much wider than the other one.
This right here is over 100 feet. Yeah, but anyway, this particular well we did perforate, and once we determine where this gas is, and what we want to set up for a frac job and work with these service companies on, then we bring in 4.5-inch pipe. That's our production string. It's about that large around. It's 4.5 inch in diameter. So we bring in a couple truckloads of pipe, pick all that up and screw it together 40 foot at a time and lower it down there. Say we want to do the Marcellus shale. We would run that pipe down. The bottom of the pipe would be somewhere right in here. So then again, we use their company. They come in again and they will calculate the amount of cement that we want to bring. We want to bring that cement back up, maybe 3,000 feet back up the hole, because we're going to fracture 3 or 4 of those zones. And we're going to start at the bottom, we're going to fracture that. We're going to move up the hole, we're going to fracture another zone, we're going to move up the hole and do it again. And once we do that, they'll come in, they'll cement. We'll force that cement back down the pipe again. Bring it back up around to a predetermined depth in that hole. And once we do that, then we shut her down again and we let it set for 3 days, 72 hours before you ever go back to the bottom. Once we do that, then we bring in a logging truck again, only they have a perforating gun. This gun is a device that's attached on the end of the cable, and the vehicle will actually shoot steel bullets out through that pipe, through that cement, out into the rock where we think there's gas. And then we bring in their crew, and they've designed a job for us that they think would be adequate to fracture that particular. We're doing the Marcellus shale by itself. And Chad, you carry on a little bit there.
All right. So as Mr. Ross says, we might have several zones we're going to frack. Typically in a Marcellus shale well, right now we're just fracking that. But let's talk about conventional work like these gentlemen do every day. Say they're going to do a Benson and then maybe a Riley or something like that. Those are sandstones, and the way I'll design a frac job is completely different than the way I'll design a Marcellus frac job. So you understand that for arguably, not really in all cases, but arguably in that sheet that Don brought us, each one of these different formations, you could argue that a different kind of frac job for every formation would be the best scenario. But in most situations, that's not true. I'm going to do a similar frac job on a Benson that I may do on the Riley or Balltown or something like that. However, the big difference is that the type of frac job I'm going to do on the Marcellus shale is very, very different than the type of frac job I'll do on a Benson or a Riley or a Balltown or an Oriskany for that matter. Okay? So when you hear these great amounts of water, don't suspect that every time we drill a well in West Virginia or Pennsylvania or New York, they're going to use that amount of water. Okay? The vast majority of wells being drilled in the Appalachian Basin still today are not Marcellus shale wells, will not have large slickwater treatments. Yes, ma'am.
But aren't we really talking about Marcellus shale here in Pocahontas?
No,
We're not talking about Braxton and everywhere else. We're
not
talking about
necessarily.
right here.
I
No.
think there's potential for a lot of risking and other things here.
Right. Here you would have potential, probably more prolific would be, as of today, more potential for the Oriskany sandstone, which is completely
It's
different.
lower than Marcellus.
Lower than the Marcellus, but a completely different treatment.
Is it
So-
still above the Onondaga?
No, the Oriskany is below the Onondaga.
Oh.
So the Oriskany would be considered a deep well. Yeah.
Okay.
If you look at this paper here, you can see that Oriskany is still in the Devonian group. but it's below the Onondaga. So
So
Ristoning's a
would
deep well.
be more inclined to sign a lease with you if you don't restrict them to the Marcellus Shale? I mean,
Well,
Sure, they'd rather have it all.
yeah,
I guess
I'd
that's
rather
a dumb
have it all.
question.
right, yeah. But, kind of taking 10 steps back, be very clear that my company is a service company. Halliburton is a service company, Schlumberger is a service company. My company doesn't own or operate any wells, okay? We come in, we're contractors. Like when you build a house, you hire contractors. When Mr. Ross or Mr. Xander drill a well, they hire contractors, which in the oil field business are called service companies, that come in and perform work on these wells. So my company is never going to sign a lease anywhere because we don't own or operate oil and gas well, okay? So I'll make sure that's very clear. We talked about the cementing and perforating. Is there any questions about, before we move on, about casing design, cementing, perforating? Probably one of the more important things to a lot of people are protecting your freshwater zones. Surface pipe is set. That's determined by the state of West Virginia. Mr. Ross doesn't get to determine that, or anyone else. The state of West Virginia determines that. And in their application for a permit to drill a well, their casing design, surface, intermediate, and long string, is on that permit. So the state of West Virginia knows before a drilling rig ever pulls up what their plan is to drill. And if that's not satisfactory for the regulations of the Department of Oil and Gas, then the permit can be rejected. Sir?
I have two sources of water on my land. I have two sources of water, both in springs. I also have a well. I did hit water until I hit 355 feet, and I got 375. Earlier it said most wells are shallow, 200-300 foot. So my concern number one is primary source number one is out in spring water, and I've got 4 or 5 active springs, and then I got a well. What does your casing do because of the soil in this area, part formation, where water migrates through the soil and in and out in days, or it takes months and other surface?
Well, the main purpose of casing and cementing is to provide a hydraulic seal on the annulus. Okay? So anything that we pump down into the well is protected by your surface casing and the cement, your intermediate casing.
So I think I'm making the assumption that somewhere along the line I'm totally cased either with steel or concrete all the way down to the point of extraction of gas.
Sure. Either by a surface, an intermediate, or a long string.
If I had any, the reason I'm asking the question is, honestly, I'm in the process of thinking about getting my water survey. What state it's in right now, what its condition is, what its clarity is, what its threat content is, anything in there, whether it's petroleum products or north or whatever. I want to check it to find out.
Sure. And Dennis, I mean,
Yeah, I left something out. If you look at my handout that I've given you, on page, I think it's 5, the bottom of page 5. As part of the permit application, and I got one up here if you'd like to look at it, you'll be notified by the operator. First, you'll get a copy of his casing program, and that's got to have to be approved by the state inspector before a permit's issued. But they will also tell you that any water source, any water well or water source that you have within 1,000 feet of the proposed well site, that you can request that the company will come and test that, or they will come and test it.
I understand that that's probably a true statement. The problem I have is some of the issues we had this community a couple months back on the sewer treatment plant, where they couldn't put a sewer treatment plant in because they had karst formation. If you had soil and water go down into the karst, you can transfer 25, 30 miles in a couple of days because the ground is so close and so fractured. It's biological fracture. That's what my concern is. I got neighbors that probably don't lease their land, or they have, if they're drilling, they're going to drill, which I think is fine, okay? But I want to make sure that whatever they do doesn't accept it.
Well, now keep in mind what Chad's saying. They're going to drill, let's say your water source is at 250 feet. They're going to probably drill 300 feet down, and they're going to run this 11-inch case, 11 3/4-inch casing, and cement it in. At that point, nothing is going to contaminate your water because that pipe is cemented in. Then they're going to go inside that and drill down to, say, 1,000 feet and set a second string of pipe and cement that in. Now, anything that's inside that 8 5/8-inch pipe would have to go through the 8 5/8-inch pipe, a sheath of cement, the 11 3/4-inch pipe, and another sheath of cement. You should be pretty well.
I accept the engineering premise on that, don't misunderstand.
Okay.
What I'm asking is that that's only part of the deal. You're also going to be pumping water under high pressure recovering the water as you frack it. as I
Well,
understand it.
there's absolutely no way that when we run this long string of pipe, what we call the long string, to say 6,000 feet, and again, it's cemented in, and we perforate that and start pumping through it, there's absolutely no way that it's going to come back to the surface. That's the whole purpose of it. When you take that 4.5-inch production pipe and you cement it in, it bonds to that formation. And the only place when you pump down a hole it's going to go is out those half-inch perforations that you shoot into it at your formation. It's just physically impossible. He doesn't have enough pump